my lovely friends. It's Emma here, just a girl who loves Elvis. There's an Elvis the world thinks it knows. The voice, the clothes, the fame, the legend. But there's another Elvis. One most people never truly met. Not because he was hidden, but because he was quiet. This Elvis didn't belong to the stage. He belonged to small moments, to private thoughts, to late night reflections, to feelings he didn't always know how to put into words. And today, I want to talk about him. Not the image, not the myth, not the headlines, but the man. Because when someone becomes a legend, we often lose the human underneath. And Elvis was never meant to be a legend. He was meant to be a person. Sensitive, thoughtful, hopeful, deeply emotional, often misunderstood. The Elvis people never really got to know is the one who felt too much in a world that wanted him to feel nothing. And that's the Elvis I want to remember with you today. When someone becomes famous, something strange happens. They stop being seen and start being projected onto. People place stories on them, ideas, expectations, assumptions. They become a symbol, not a person. And Elvis Presley became one of the biggest symbols the world has ever created. Strength, sex appeal, rebellion, confidence, power. But symbols don't get tired. They don't get lonely. They don't get overwhelmed. They don't cry in private. People do. And Elvis was a person long before he was a legend. He didn't wake up one day and decide to become a myth. He was just a boy who liked music, who felt things deeply, who was shy, who doubted himself, who wanted to belong. And that part of him never left, no matter how big he became. Some people are built for fame. They love attention. They crave admiration. They thrive in crowds. Elvis wasn't like that. He handled fame, but he didn't belong to it. He was naturally introverted, naturally sensitive, naturally emotional. He thought deeply. He questioned things. He worried about people. He absorbed the emotional temperature of rooms. He was the kind of person who noticed when someone went quiet, when someone seemed uncomfortable, when someone needed reassurance but didn't know how to ask. And that kind of person doesn't harden easily. They soften. Fame didn't make him stronger. It made him more careful, more self-conscious, more unsure of who people really liked, him or the legend. He once said he never got used to being stared at. That never left him. Imagine being known by millions, but truly known by almost no one. That's the Elvis people never really saw. Elvis didn't just notice people. He felt them. Some people experience life on the surface. They move quickly from one emotion to the next. But others live deeper. They absorb moods. They take on the emotional weather of a room. They carry things that were never meant to be theirs. And I think Elvis was one of those people. He didn't just hear music, he entered it. He didn't just perform emotion, he translated it. He didn't just connect, he bonded. And I think that's why his voice feels personal. Not just impressive, but personal. You don't just listen to him, you feel accompanied by him. That kind of emotional depth doesn't turn off when the music stops. It follows you home, into your thoughts, into your relationships, into your private fears. And that can be beautiful. But it can also be heavy. One of the most misunderstood things about Elvis was how much reassurance he needed. People assume that when someone is adored by millions, they must feel secure. But fame doesn't create security. It often destroys it. Because applause is not intimacy. Admiration is not understanding. And Elvis wanted to be understood. He worried about disappointing people. He worried about being misread. He worried about being unfairly judged. He wasn't careless with hearts. He was careful with them. Sensitive people often doubt themselves the most. They replay conversations. They wonder if they said the wrong thing. They ask themselves if they were kind enough. Elvis did that. Not publicly, privately. And that kind of emotional self-question doesn't show on stage, but it lives in quiet moments. People love to list Elvis's generosity. The gifts, the money, the help. But they rarely talk about the emotional reason behind it. Elvis didn't give to look generous. He gave because he felt people's discomfort like it was his own. If someone was embarrassed, he felt it. If someone was struggling, he felt it. If someone felt small, he felt it. And he wanted to make it better. Not to be a hero, but because he couldn't bear the imbalance. If he had more, he wanted others to have more too. And that's not public generosity. That's emotional generosity. And emotional generosity is exhausting. Because you don't just give things. You give pieces of yourself. There's a softness to Elvis that the world rarely allowed him to show. Softness doesn't sell headlines. Softness doesn't make myths. Softness doesn't fit neatly into legends. So it often went unseen. But those who were close to him, those who really knew him, often described him as gentle. Not weak, gentle. He had a way of lowering his voice when others were loud. He had a way of listening when others rushed to speak. He had a way of noticing small shifts in people's moods. Soft people don't try to dominate the world. They feel it. They move through it quietly, noticing more than they show. Elvis didn't like cruelty. He didn't like humiliation. He didn't like people being made to feel small. He was bothered by suffering. Not in an abstract way. In a personal one. When people hurt, he felt it. And that kind of heart doesn't disappear just because someone becomes famous. Silence makes people uncomfortable. When someone doesn't explain themselves loudly, the world fills in the gaps. And Elvis was often quiet. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he thought deeply before he spoke. Sensitive people are often misunderstood as distant, or aloof, or mysterious. But many times they are simply processing. Elvis carried a lot inside. Thoughts, questions, worries, dreams. And he didn't always know how to express them in a world that wanted simple answers. So I think his silence became misunderstood. Privacy became suspicion. Gentleness became weakness. Depth became complication. But in reality, he was just human. This may be one of the most heartbreaking truths. Elvis knew he was famous, but I don't think he always knew how deeply he was loved. Fame is loud. Love is quiet. Love lives in memories, in comfort, in tears, in private moments. Love is someone playing your music when they're alone. Love is someone thinking of you when they're sad. Love is someone defending you when you're gone. And Elvis had that kind of love. But sensitive people often don't fully feel it. They doubt. They question. They wonder if they're enough. And I believe Elvis did too. Most famous people become history. But Elvis became memory. Not public memory. Personal memory. People don't talk about him like a distant figure. They talk about him like someone who mattered. Someone who helped them through hard times. Someone who made them feel less alone. Someone who felt like company. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens when someone shows emotional truth. Even when they don't realise they're doing it. The Elvis people never got to know wasn't the one in the headlines. He was the one who felt too much, the one who worried, the one who gave, the one who softened, the one who tried. He wasn't perfect. He was human. And that's why he still matters. Because legends fade, but humanity doesn't. And Elvis Presley left behind something deeper than fame. He left behind feeling. And that's why, all these years later, we still carry him. And if this episode meant something to you, if it made you feel a little less alone, a little more understood, or a little more connected to the Elvis people rarely talk about, then you're very welcome here. You can like, subscribe, share this with someone who might need a little softer corner of the world today, but only if it feels right to you. No pressure, just an open invitation. More than anything, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and as always, keep a little Elvis magic in your heart. I'll see you next time.